Hello, my name is Anwar, and I know what you're thinking. Why is this brother in a room full of mostly women talking about how to be an ally? That's a fair point. Let me start by first just addressing up front. I have been black since the late 70s. I've learned a lot about society by simply being black in it. Like, I get followed around the Walmart for no reason because I'm black. I get pulled over from time to time for no reason because I'm black. Sometimes it works out okay. Occasionally I get a compliment like, oh, he's so well spoken, but it's because I'm black. But you know, I'm also a huge nerd, okay? And like a lot of black nerds, I'm very used to being the only brother in the room, right? But most of the time, that's okay, because today, in a lot of rooms, as evidenced by a lot of the talks before now, I know I have allies. So what is allyism? Is allyism doing something like for the millionth time by saying, no, she is not the nurse. Thank you. I know it's not just me. Is it stopping rounds in real time if one of your learners refers to one of your transgender patients as it? Is that allyism? Well, you know, allyism, or being an ally, in the root means to bind together, to protect one another. And I'm not the first brother to consider himself a feminist, or to be the only brother in the room at some sort of feminist convention. That title probably goes to one Frederick Douglass, who was the only brother in the room during the Seneca Falls Convention. Now, it's been messy at times, we can agree on that, but black people have been there at the table for women's suffrage. And the same could go for Frederick Douglass, who famously said, I have not yet been able to find one instance for consideration for which a man's right to participate in civil government should not equally apply to that of a woman. You know, women, though, have been at every turn and at the beginning and the middle and the end of civil rights. Many folks consider the start of the modern civil rights movement the brutal lynching of Emmett Till and the circulation of those photos in papers across the country that spurred a lot of folks to action. However, what a lot of times people forget is that it was his mother, Mamie Elizabeth Till, an angry woman, who demanded that that funeral be an open casket so that people can see what racism did to her boy. She actually went on to do a lot of advocacy after that, not just this is what happened to me, but she used her frame as a mother to explain to people that may not have experienced what she experienced what racism was all about. This, my friends, is the intersection. Intersectionality gives us a lens or a prism to which we can view other people's oppression and difficulties and challenges in life. Intersections help me to understand what a lot of my female colleagues go through. Intersections can help us understand what our transgender colleagues go through, even if you're not belonging to one of those groups. What does it look like in the sports world? You know, Colin Kaepernick is neither white, nor gay, nor a woman. But when superstar athlete Megan Rapinoe kneels in support of his protest against the policing of a black man in the United States, it gives us insight into both struggles and helps us to understand more. So, I can tell you from being the only brother in the room for so long that I couldn't do it without allies. I need someone to help me stand up for all of these biases that I face. So what can I do? What can we do? I've tried to live by this mantra: if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the precipitate. Now that's a nerd joke. You knew what was coming. I warned you up front. I first told my wife that I wanted to come to a feminism conference in New York City and talk about these ideas that I'd been having. And she looked at me and said, when am I going to get my chance to talk about how you were when I first met you? And I told her there's no chance for rebuttal here, but she looked at me and she said, bruh, why? Then I told my oldest that, you know, there's a lot of these things in the medical literature or in the business literature called ally behaviors, and there's just so many of them. I want to talk about them. And she's like, Dad, it's too early for all that. Bruh. And then I told my youngest that, you know, there's so much of it that a lot of it doesn't necessarily speak to what happens in the clinical space, but maybe there's a way I can help translate this. And she's like, Dad, we had the baseball game, bruh. And then I told my best friend, I was like, you know, there's so many different things. I think I found a few that I think would stick, but I need to come up with a way for people to understand them and have something to go home with. And he looked at me like, really? Really, bruh? Then it hit me, bruh. I know it's brilliant, I get it. But the bruh movement, B is for breathe twice before interrupting one of your female colleagues, fellas. We gotta stop. I'm gonna let all those applause finish because I wanna be part of the solution, okay? I'm not gonna interrupt anybody up here. But research shows us that women are interrupted at work, don't get the chance to talk as much at meetings, and we have got to stop. It's our problem. The he-peating, the mansplaining, the bropriation. I could do this all day. The him-terruptions. Those are our problems. Those are our problems too, and we can do better. R is to recognize the intersectionality that we all have together, right? If you're not a straight white man with a great job, then we're probably in the same bucket, okay? We can harness these things together to help look at each other's struggle and be allies together. You is to update your vocabulary. Like words like catty and bossy and shrill have no place in evaluating any residents. We can give specific feedback that doesn't involve that. And you know what? If people are confused, just take the gender and switch the roles. We know there's a double standard, but we can do something about it. H is for hyping up the women doesn't hurt you. Now, I know we're in New York, and this is a biggie town, but just stay with me for 1 minute. Now, Tupac had a lot of hits, and he is often regarded as a gangster rapper, but 3 of his biggest hits were strictly about the plight of women in his life, his mother and Brenda, and women in general, but yet he still maintains his status as a gangster rapper. It doesn't hurt anybody to appropriately praise the women that you work with. We can do this. We can. Bruh. One more time. Breathe and listen before speaking over your female colleagues. Maybe it's fine if somebody else says it. Recognize the intersectionality that we all share. Update the vocabulary and drop this double standard with anger. Drop the words that we shouldn't use. H, hyping up and praising women at work is not a zero-sum game. It's not. Bruh. So, Now you may be wondering, what's the best time for a bra moment, right? Now, it may not be to where you have your own men's group where you can address all of these things with your learners up front to let them know the expectations that this assistant program director has for their behavior. You may not be in that situation. It may not be in the middle of a code, but it can be in a debrief. You can take a few minutes to even advise the most woke brother that every so often he overtalks women in codes. All of us can get better. It may not be during rounds where you tell people to stop using the term bossy. However, it could be before the meeting where you evaluate your female residents. It also could be on rounds where you give a short round of applause for an ultrasound pickup or a good save. We can do this. We can all find the time for our bra moments. And I say that to say that as it stands right now, we got to do better because bra, it's not okay. Thanks, everybody.